Okay, let's dive into the breaking news. That is the Buffalo Bills fire their offensive coordinator, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen up against the ropes. Couple quick thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers, as well as Jimbo Fisher paid $75 million to not coach Texas A&M. I got some takes on the contract buyout situation in general in college football, as well as a little Tuesday therapy. We try to be positive on something negative in the NFL. And I think I saw something last weekend that, I think brighter days are ahead for this franchise. But make sure if you're watching this on the 3 and Out feed on YouTube, hammer that subscribe button. We just started this thing Monday after the Monday Night Football game. We're going to have all of our content here. We're going to have nonstop content here. I'm a content producer. Podcasts, interviews, you name it. Subscribe to the podcast or to the podcast here on YouTube. If you listen to the podcast, as you should, Apple, Spotify, we have you covered. Go hammer the 3 and Out podcast with a subscribe. And the volume.com has merch. Got 3 and Out hats, Flex Fit, trucker hats. We have you covered. Before we dive into some meaty football stuff, can you guys hear me out on something? Go to your app store on your cell phone. Download a little app called Gametime. And when you download Gametime, which is the official ticketing app of this podcast, here's what I need you to do. I need you to buy a pair of tickets. Football games, basketball games, hockey games, concerts, comedy shows. Go enjoy yourself. They're the fastest ticketing app in America. And when you go enjoy yourself, when you buy that first pair of tickets, use a little promo code called John. Promo code John, John. In these inflationary times, saving a little money is always awesome. Promo code John, get you $20 off your first pair of tickets, athletic events, college, pro, concerts. You want to be a Swiftie, comedy shows, we got you covered. Promo code John. Don't even need a thank you. Just hammer John Gametime app. Fastest growing ticketing app in America. I wanted to do a little Tuesday therapy. I'm trying to bring this in. We're trying to shed a positive light on this podcast. Bring smiles to people's faces. I was probably leading the charge because I said at the time I used to live probably 20 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, in closer to downtown and like Old Town Scottsdale in Paradise Valley, where all the super rich people live. And they're just, 10 to 20 to $25 million homes there. And Jonathan Gannon had bought a home there for $10 million. And I said, God, this guy was a coordinator for 2 years. It was just more of a reflection of the NFL money. Dude, go right in, first year head coach, had only been a coordinator for a couple years, buying a $10 million home. Probably didn't even think twice about it. Decent pad, but for $10 million, I'd like a little more. That's why I like North Scottsdale. But regardless, everyone was making fun of the guy. Pew, 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 pew. The way he led the team in that meeting that went viral. Their team actually has been pretty impressive, right? Starting with Josh Dobbs to what we just witnessed with Kyler Murray. Everyone thought they were going to be competing to have the number 1 pick, and Caleb Williams and his dad was going to deny going there. We refused to play for the Cardinals, a little Eli Manning style. Turns out the Cardinals actually are kind of feisty. And now that they got Kyler Murray back, I think you wave goodbye to drafting in the top couple picks. I think this team, when you look up, is going to be like 6-11 and have probably upset some people down the stretch. Because one thing all my guys in Philly said when everyone was making fun of him, they all liked him. They all liked him. And one thing I got pretty universally was that Gannon might be a better head coach than he was a coordinator. Because no one would get him confused with like Belichick or Fangio as some X's and O's, but he actually is a good leader of men, which was kind of funny because the pew, pew, pew comment and, the other comment about fire in your belly did not look that way, but that's all I heard. And here's what you got to say. When you watch their team play, they're pretty impressive. And the way he's handled this Kyler Murray situation, also kind of impressive. And I'm telling you, if Kyler is just healthy, as he was against the Atlanta Falcons, he's a mother to play against, man. He really is. I don't care if he's throwing to me. I don't care if he's throwing to Larry Fitzgerald, or I don't care if he's throwing to DeAndre Hopkins. He can make plays. He's done it his entire career. His issue is when he gets banged up, he becomes half as good. Like he becomes a shell of himself because of his size, because of how much his game is based on movement and the explosive speed. But the guy that I saw was, damn, the Falcons, or excuse me, what they did to the Falcons. If I'm an Arizona Cardinal fan, you're by no means a joke. And that was a team that, the way we talk about the Giants, the way we talk about the Patriots, we all put in pen, not in pencil, that the Arizona Cardinals were going to be right there. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I got some DMs about Tomlin and just the job he's doing. Like, it's pretty crazy. They're 6-3. Their starting quarterbacks have thrown a combined 7 touchdowns, Trubisky and Pickett. And if you watch their games, they go 3 and out. I've talked about it with Stuckey more than any team in the league. Almost like 48%, 47% of the time, they go 3 and out. So almost 50% chance when the Pittsburgh Steelers get the football, they're going to be 3 plays and punt the football. That's crazy. But they're 6-3. And you're 6-3, you got 8 games left. You will go 4-4 down the stretch. You're a 10-win team, probably a wild card. And so I just looked at all the other 6-win teams, what production they're getting out of their quarterback. Like the Minnesota Vikings, who are 6-4. Even if you just take Kirk Cousins, who's obviously missed the last couple games, he had thrown 18 touchdowns. Dobbs added 3. They got 21 touchdowns from their quarterback. The Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, 6-3. 17 touchdowns. The 49ers, 6-3. Purdy, 15 touchdowns. Seattle, 11 touchdowns from Geno Smith. And obviously they have a good run game. Like the Browns, to me, are a good example with the Steelers, who have 8 touchdowns with P.J. Walker and Deshaun Watson. And their team, a lot like the Steelers, it's pretty crazy they're at where they're at. But their defense is even on a higher level than Pittsburgh. Like, to me, Pittsburgh's secondary is questionable. It's the pass rush is just all-time elite. Now they're missing linebackers. But the Miami Dolphins, who are 6-3, Tua has thrown 19 touchdowns. 19 touchdowns. So when I look at this team, it's Mike Tomlin's a badass. If you're going to want to have some beers and hang out with one coach in the NFL, he would be near the top, right? Guys like him and Vrabel that you just want to be a fucking dude with and just kick it with. And honestly, a guy to coach your team because he can just figure out a way. Not an easy watch, but he can figure out a way to win you games and you're never going to suck. I just don't know if this is sustainable, right? To me, the Browns somewhat are sustainable because Watson, as he showed in the second half, assuming he's healthy, can just be somewhat solid, right? He's not probably as bad as he's been. He's never going to be as good as he once was, but he's definitely better than Kenny Pickett. So if he can just get them to a position where he plays, we've said this over and over, just like solid, they're going to be an 11-12 win team. Their defense is elite. The Steelers defense isn't quite that. So is Kenny Pickett in their offense? And I saw that they named Warren the starting running back, which is the right move. I've watched Najee Harris since he was in high school. I loved him. I mean, obviously he was one of the biggest recruits in the country, followed his career very closely in Alabama. He's just pretty average. If you could have that as a do-over, they would have a do-over. Hell, they picked the wrong running back, back-to-back picks. It was Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. In 2023, it's not even debatable who you'd rather have out of those two players. Najee Harris is a between-the-tackle running back, and he's just not that good between the tackles. He, like Sneaky, doesn't run that hard for a big physical back. You can be like, well, their offensive line sucks. I don't know. I just watch him. I don't think he's a very good player. And clearly the Steelers agreed because they benched him. And they named Warren, much smaller, but much more explosive player, willing to hit the hole, the starting guy. And he's going to get the bulk of the carries. Well-deserved. It's the way the NFL works. It's meritocracy. You either get it done or you don't. If you don't get it done, you'll get replaced. Because every year, whether you're a coach or whether you're a player, hell, whether you're a scout, you will get turned through. That's just the way the league works. And scouting's a little different. It's more like who you're friends with. But as a player, for sure, if you are not producing for your job, I don't care where you're picked, you will not hold on to that job for too long. And I think the Steelers are one of the most fascinating case studies over this next month and a half. The other thing they got going for them is, like, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, the Ravens play the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. You are rooting for the Ravens just to say bye-bye to the Bengals. Get them gone. Because if they're gone, you knock them out. You start rooting against the Chargers. You get some of these teams that you kind of be competing against. Like, you're going to get a playoff spot. And this is the hard part. It's like Mike Tomlin, again, 10-7 with average quarterback play. But then you lose in the first round. It just kind of feels like the same old. But I do think it's pretty impressive what they're doing, given, like, it's not crazy the Cowboys when they beat the shit out of everybody and they're scoring 40, 50 points, or when the Niners beat you by 30 points. Like, that's like, they're good. Like the Steelers, you watch them. I think the Packers stink. I don't think they're good at all. I think Jordan Love is average as the day is long. And that was a game. I mean, Jordan Love's driving them down. If the DB doesn't make a play, tip it to the safety, Packers win that game. But that's how all their games look. Whether they're playing the Browns, the Ravens, or whether they're playing, a team drafting in the top 10. Can you believe we're this deep into the NFL season? We got to make every second count. With DraftKings Sportsbook, you can make the most out of every game. Bet on your favorite teams for a shot at winning big bucks. New customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting $5 on any matchup. So right now, get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the app now and use the code JOHN. New customers can score $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on the NFL. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code JOHN. The crown is yours. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. And the old adage is, can't fire players, especially guys that are making a lot of money, right? I don't know if you saw the latest headline with the New York Yankees, but the general manager's taking big-time shots at the highest paid player on the team, Giancarlo Stanton. Can't fire Stanton. You can't just cut him. You own that money. It's guaranteed. And I'm not trying to compare Giancarlo Stanton to Josh Allen, but when a highly paid guy struggles and you're a team, and let's use the Yankees and the Bills as an example, when you become one of the powers in your sport, the expectations are super high, right? Right now, the Raiders rattle off a couple wins, and everyone is doing cartwheels. People are so happy that there's a 2-game winning streak. Anything less than 12 or 13 wins when you're the Buffalo Bills is a disaster. Anything less than the the AL East, if you're the New York Yankees, is viewed as a failure. So when you miss the playoffs altogether, heads roll. Now, that's a separate conversation when it comes to the Yankees. No one ever gets fired for some reason there. With the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott has proven people won't last when expectations are not met, which is kind of crazy because what are the actual expectations of the Buffalo Bills? I know every team loves to say, Super Bowl or bust. Like, no, you're not Super Bowl or bust. That ain't the case. That is actually, there's one team in the NFL that can be truly disappointed if they don't win the Super Bowl. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. They've been in 3 of the last 5. They've won a couple. They're the only current group right now that can go, when the season starts, anything less than a Super Bowl is a disappointment. The Eagles or the 49ers, if they get to the Super Bowl and were to lose, well, it would hurt. It would really suck. And Eagle fans, last year, that sucked. Niner fans a couple years ago in 2019, not fun. Still a very, very successful year, right? And the Bills are just looking AFC Championship game, where they haven't been to many over the last 25 years, would be a successful season. I'm sorry. But how it looks matters. And even last year, you win a bunch of games, you're hosting playoff games, but to get your ass kicked by the Bengals, just didn't fly, even though the Bengals are better than you. Joe Burrow's a better player than Josh Allen, right? That's not even really arguable at this point. And I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. I am. He is the type player that I want. A little less turnovers, but big, fast, strong, huge arm. Guy I know I can go to war with. Guy who's proven to play well in big games. But the way he's currently playing in 2023 is a disaster. I mean, he's on pace for 18, 19 interceptions. Even if you threw 50 touchdowns, if you throw 18 or 19 interceptions, unless you have the best defense in the NFL, you're going to have major issues. So clearly right now with their defense having a lot of injury issues, his turnovers are fucking killing them. And let's face it, obviously you wouldn't cut Josh Allen after a bad year, even if you could. That's not, good players have rough stretches, but it's a major problem. And in football, it goes, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. So when Josh Allen had most of his success is under Brian Daboll, who's long gone. And this is the argument, if you want to go to Coward's thing about not hiring defensive head coaches, they have nothing to do with the quarterback. Most of defensive head coaches couldn't tell you the majority of offensive plays. That sounds crazy, but that is just a fact. I'm not making that up. This is from being around the NFL. This is from talking to people that work for different teams. This is for talking to offensive coaches that work for defensive head coaches. They don't know the playbook, which isn't that big a deal if you have a really good offensive coordinator and a really good quarterback, i.e. Sean McDermott when he had Brian Daboll and Josh Allen. Right now, Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken. John Harbaugh feels pretty good about it. Felt pretty good about it a lot of times with Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson. It happens. But beside giving motivation and confidence or stern warnings, that's not okay to throw that pass, the head coach doesn't bring much to the table when it comes to the quarterback. Whether you're Sean McDermott, whether you're Brandon Staley, hell, whether you're Mike Tomlin. It's all, kind of big picture stuff. There isn't individual coaching going on when it comes to certain plays. Now, there might be, like I said, don't make that pass, don't throw it into double coverage. But to think that these guys could rattle off every route, every audible on that route, everything at the line of scrimmage that the quarterback's supposed to know, think about, is just, you'd be wrong to think that they're at that level. They're just not. So when you get in these situations, when the high-paid quarterback starts sucking, and that's what Josh Allen currently is doing in these Monday night games. He looks like a complete scrub. He looks like a bigger, faster, stronger version of like Mac Jones. There's only one person to go. The head coach is never going to fire himself, right? He likes making his $12, $13, $14 million, and he wants to keep his job. So he's not going to fire himself. Well, who's he going to fire? The offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not acting like Ken Dorsey is the second coming of Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. But to think that after last night, it's all Ken Dorsey's fault, to me seems a little crazy. Right now, are there elements of Brian Daboll, kind of a hard ass, not allowing Josh to get away with some of this stuff? Sometimes when your game falters, to me, in football, especially at quarterback, it's because you get away from the fundamentals. And if you go just YouTube Tom Brady or Peyton Manning at practice, how seriously they take fundamentals. I'm talking footwork. I'm talking 3, 5, 7-step drops. I'm talking play fakes. Remember in Hard Knocks when Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson in the room with Hackett were trying to guess, is this a run or is this a pass? And Aaron Rodgers take play fakes very, very seriously. Fundamentals of the position all bleed in to the other stuff, scrambling around, making big throws. And when you watch Josh Allen, and Favre became this when Holmgren left, it just kind of becomes willy-nilly. And like I said with Sean McDermott, who I've known for a decade plus, I like Sean McDermott. And when I hear people say he's pretty rigid, yeah, he's a disciplined, old school guy. So beside like get your shit together, I just don't know what else he can say to Josh Allen beside like get on the coordinator. And clearly the coordinator just wasn't getting the job done. It's the way it works. It's the best part about pro sports. It's very black and white. It's a result-oriented business. When you start sucking on a certain side of the ball, heads roll. When you start losing, you end up losing your job. Like if Sean McDermott, to me, if they win 7, 8 games, I don't care how much money he's owed, and I'm pretty sure he's owed a lot of money. He will not be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills moving forward. This is the way the league works. Fair or not, which I could argue it's a little unfair given how much success they've had over the last 3 years, but that's just the nature of the beast. And clearly they'd want to get an offensive head coach because their entire franchise hinges on this individual playing well, right? It was like, if you're going to fire McDermott, it's like when Holmgren left, and I'm not comparing McDermott to Holmgren. Holmgren was better. But like you hire someone, it's all about making Josh Allen right. It's all about getting him under control and not having him throw the ball to the other team. It's really just that simple. I mean, honestly, it's not that complicated of a sport. Now, there's a ton of pressure on Joe Brady. Last time I checked, he got a ton of credit for Joe Burrow. Turned out there were co-offensive coordinators on that LSU team. And then when he went to the Panthers, which in fairness was Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, a lot of random quarterbacks. And Matt Rule isn't proven exactly to be the next Nick Saban, even at Nebraska, let alone, in the pros, he was terrible. But he did fire him after a bye week, told him to pack your shit and get out of here. And there was a ton of hype on that guy. So I don't feel great about Joe Brady just being able to save the day. But I think one thing that goes sometimes untalked about in these situations is how big of a hand the owner has, right? The owner's spending a shitload of money on a lot of players. They invested a ton of cash in Von Miller. Like, they would like to have that one back. Now, I love Von Miller. He made me a ton of money when I bet on the Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl against Carolina. He was, and I've seen him play several times in his prime, is one of the great players, any sport, from Barry Bonds to Ken Griffey to Steph Curry to LeBron, I've ever, in the peak of his powers, dude was an unstoppable pass rushing force. 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, must pass down in his prime. He was creating havoc. I don't care if you got Trent Williams, it was going to be a long night. Anthony Munoz, he is elite, but he's old now. He's coming off an ACL, and you gave him $55+ million. And when you give that amount of money to older players, it limits what else you could do, especially when you're paying your quarterback a ton of money. So my blinds just fell. But ultimately, this is all about fixing the quarterback. And that's what Sean McDermott's trying to do here, but he doesn't really have any answers. There's nothing else he can really do but do this. And I think you have to wonder out loud over these next however many games they have left, whether they're 5-5, 7 games left, is his job on the line. Because I think you'd be naive to think that it's not. I find it funny that when the media makes fun of all these college athletic departments and universities that have these enormous buyouts for their coaches. And let's use this as an example. If you're listening to this right now and you negotiate deals for your company, whatever that may be, whether it's hiring employees, whether that be acquisitions, whether it be vendors you work with, I don't know, whatever it is. The more and more you do that, your life becomes, from professionally, very just based on dollars and cents. You become numb to money. I would say most of the best people in business as a negotiator are kind of unemotional when it comes to dollars and cents. I think one downfall of a lot of people is they become a little too emotionally tied to money. And I'm not acting like I, at points in time in my life, were never like that. It's just as I've gotten older, I've realized how little money does to me, and I've never made more, but it just, the influence it has on my happiness, I've just become kind of numb to it, and it's made me better. I just negotiated, I've negotiated these deals with the volume, and it's just, I don't care that much in terms of getting up and down over it. And most of the best agents I've talked to, people in business, I'm not saying you can't be emotionally invested in what you're negotiating, but you understand that every dollar, I'm not saying you blow money, but you just you understand that what to fight for and what not to fight for. I guess that's what I'm attempting to say. And I think people in business, negotiators, get very good at that. And when I look at these academic institutions, like in the NFL, when you negotiate, let's say with the Philadelphia Eagles or the San Francisco 49ers, I use those two as an example because I know them the best. They have 2 guys that negotiate on behalf of them, like the true decision makers beside the owner, in Parag Marate for the 49ers and Howie Roseman for the Philadelphia Eagles. These guys have been negotiating deals now at the scale of hundreds of millions of dollars for decades. So they are numb to it. And then their knowledge of what to fight for and what not to fight for is just going to be greater than the majority of agents beside a couple. So they're always going to have an advantage, right? And when I see these college institutions get in bed with Jimbo Fisher or whoever, it could be Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, the advantage that Jimmy Sexton, who represents the majority of these individuals, has, because he negotiates for a living and he's done it for decades against the ultimate decision maker at these schools, is not the athletic director, who I would say is never going to be on the level for the most part as one of these high-level agents, but he has a fighting chance. But it's going to be the president. And while these presidents run hundreds of millions of dollars in terms under their umbrella for the university, most of them come from academia. So when you deal with grants or whatever for your institution, you're just trying to raise money to then go let your professors do whatever they're going to do, which is important. I guess every individual instance is probably a little different based on importance, but it's a lot different. You're not paying any of these professors $10 million a year. That's never going to be the case. The dude in the science department might be making at most $300,000-$400,000. So when you pay these coaches this much money, it's because you're dealing with people that operate in these worlds. So when you see that Jimbo Fisher is owed $75 million, it's simply because, and I've been told this because I know some of these agents that represent these coaches, These academic institutions have no chance. They're always going to lose in the negotiation. And they consistently do. Because in no other world would you put yourself in a position to owe a guy like this who has not produced the ROI for you this much money. But time and time and time again, Jimmy Sexton bends these presidents over. In fairness to these presidents, this is not their world. They're never going to know. I don't care how many times they fuck up, because this is all kind of monopoly money to them anyway. This is not coming out of their pocket. Like, even in the NFL, Mark Davis just paid someone to go away. The logic behind hiring Josh McDaniels wasn't that crazy. Probably one of the best coordinators on the market at the time. He had to give him a 6-year deal and pay him a lot of money because Robert Kraft, one of the richer owners in the NFL, was paying him a ton of money to be the offensive coordinator. So yeah, I got to pay him $10 million a year. If the place he's working at to be the number 2 is paying him 6 or 7, remember, he was making an astronomical amount of money. I'm defending Mark Davis here. But in college, you get a president who can get desperate, who gets boosters in his ear. And at the end of the day, when you have to send these guys on their way, this money is just coming from other boosters. What I find crazy is the addiction you'd have to your institution to, let's just assume, I don't exactly know how this is going to go, but 10 guys, let's say less, 5 guys are really involved in getting together to get this $75 million over a period of time to get Jimbo Fisher out of there, right? And I can't imagine being that individual. I really can't, right? At least in the NFL, like, you own the team. Like, ultimately, it's all your decisions. So even if you are the biggest booster, it's never going to be all your decisions. It just never will, even if you do have a lot of sway. But this notion that everyone's like, you can't believe this is happening over and over and over again. These presidents get taken advantage of because it's not their world. They have no shot. They do not. And they are never going to. They're just not. As long as academia runs the universities, this is going to continue to happen. Now, if you put a CEO or someone like that in charge of the entire university, and you can be like, well, Middlekauff, they run these billion-dollar endowments. It's different. It's complete. You're just getting, loads of money from rich people donating. In this situation, you're negotiating a specific contract with a specific individual. They don't do that anywhere else on campus. Hell, they don't even do that anywhere else in the athletic department besides some basketball teams. Hiring a soccer coach or a baseball coach is easy. Even if the guy makes a lot of money, it might be like 3 years, $2 million. If my baseball coach, makes $600,000-$700,000. You're hiring a football coach. Football coach makes that every month. So these are complicated, and the agents continue to win. Okay, let's get out of here on this. It's time for this week's player or coach I thought might give almost anything to redo his game, brought to you by Uber Eats. While Ken Dorsey was shown the door today, and he was fired because Josh Allen stinks right now, the special teams coach right now has to be hiding under his desk. As Sean McDermott said, having 12 men on the field in that situation is inexcusable. As I said after the game, that's an embarrassment. It's inexcusable. I don't even think, I think understates how ugly that is. What a disaster that situation is. You can't tell me, obviously the special teams coach, but I was thinking about today, there's a player, and publicly it hasn't got out yet, that clearly fucked up, that was not supposed to be on the field. Whether he did not realize he was off the unit, whether he was on the unit in previous weeks and just had a brain fart. So the special teams coach, I'm sure, got undressed by McDermott. But that player who also screwed up, those two guys today, seeing Ken Dorsey clear out his locker room, have to be hiding, have to be tiptoeing around the office. Now, while the players get a day off, it's probably just the coach. Tomorrow, that player is going to be terrified coming into that team meeting because it's ugly. And that's this week's almost anything player and coach of the week, the Buffalo Bills special teams. And you can order almost anything with Uber Eats, the official on-demand partner of the NFL. Order now.